All right. We are doing Daniel. We're on Daniel chapter 2, verses 3 to 13, and you can kind of follow along there. I know that everybody has a different translation in their Bible, so I'm not, and even if you're using your phone for your Bible app, that's why I'm doing this. It used to be we did it differently. I'd read out of the Bible and people would say, well, that's not what my Bible says, and so on. So now I get the idea across and then reference what verses it's coming from, and then you can kind of do your thinking. Every president, and all I can refer to is this country, every president has a cabinet filled with people who are knowledgeable in their area of expertise. When you have somebody that's going to be in your cabinet, then you pick somebody, if it's something that has to do with finance, and you get the best of the best financial person. And the same is true with every other aspect that has to do with the dealings. Believe me, I would not want to be president. No way. I don't care how much power and prestige they've got. It would seem obvious that the president only has a certain number of hours in the day and a certain amount of time, and he must depend on these advisors, and that's what the cabinet is a group of advisors, to give him information on an area that they are assigned to. So in other words, you don't have to be, as a president, and you certainly don't want to have the president micromanaging everything. Meaning, why have the cabinet member? Why have the advisor if you're going to overrule everything that they say as if you know better than they do? Now you may not agree with everything that your cabinet member says or your advisor says, but on the other hand, you've got them there for a reason. So at least listen to what they've got to say. There might be something there worth. And even though this doesn't pertain to what we're just talking about, it dawns on me that in marriage, quite often you want me to wait till Robert comes back? In marriage, it is, there are kind of two chains of thinking. And one is that the man makes all the decisions on everything. He doesn't take into account any wisdom that his wife may have on the subject. He just, in fact, he doesn't even want to listen to her. He just goes ahead and does whatever it is that he's going to do. And quite often, I'll testify to this, quite often when we quickly jump into doing whatever we're going to do without asking advice or opinion, it's been a royal screw-up. And so, okay, here it is. So, I think it's really extremely important that we and it doesn't have to be just the man asking the woman's advice. It can be both ways. Is it really? Why would you not get a different perspective? If you're in the middle of something trying to make a decision, why would you think that somehow you've got all the answers? Better to say, I've been thinking about doing thus and so, and I wondered what you'd think about that. And it can be little stuff, it can be big stuff, it can be whatever. So I'm just saying, don't be don't be afraid to ask for advice. Now, you do get the other way around sometimes, where the wife is, in fact, I've seen this a lot, where the wife marries a weak husband. And why do you think she does that? So that she can control the outcome of everything. She just does it for a selfish reason, because she wants to call the shots. And it doesn't work really well either. So the whole idea is to have this balance between asking for advice and even if you think you got the right answer, it doesn't hurt any to say, honey, what do you think? What do you think about this? If it's something that is completely, your wife may turn to you and say, well, I have no clue about anything mechanical, so you're on your own. So anyway, enough of that, but I thought it would be, it kind of fits right in here. It also seems, and this kind of fills in too, it would also seem logical that the president would have to have faith in these advisors. If he doesn't trust them, then how can he make good choices and decisions with faulty information? So if he doesn't, he goes, no, this person's got their own agenda here. I don't know that I trust what they're telling me. Well, that's why it's important who you pick. This is the position that King Nebuchadnezzar, actually, he was Nebuchadnezzar II, but we don't even go there because we need to complicate our lives. He found himself in this kind of predicament. He had a troubling dream which had caused him a lot of distress. Ever had those dreams where you kind of wake up in a panic and you're going, I don't want to fall back asleep because I'm afraid that dream will just continue. Actually, we call it a nightmare, right? I don't want to do that. So let me just stay awake here for a minute and maybe it'll pass and we won't have to go through this. Well, he's had this dream. And it's interesting because I believe that this dream, obviously this dream is based on some visions that he was having. And the visions were given to him by God. As it turns out, we'll find out why that is. But he was tired of not being able to sleep, and he wanted answers, and he wanted them now, because after all, he's the head poobah, right? He's the Lion King. He's the man in charge. He's large and in charge, and that's verse 3. He wants answers. And just as a president would seek advice from his advisors, who do you think the king turns to get some answers about his dream? Every one of these pagan kings had magicians and sorcerers and astrologers to find the answers for whatever questions that he had. And very seldom did they go about it the same way that he's about to go about it here. So upon hearing this news, when he assembled the astrologers and the sorcerers together, his advisors answered, here's their answer, tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it. Verse 4. Well, duh. What do you mean? If you tell us your dream, we can make up any answer we want to, and who are you to argue? But Evidently, they needed some motivation to really do this the right way. And they're fearful, right? Nebuchadnezzar was not. He was the kind of king that was not known for being. He was known for being quick to make his decisions, and the kind of decisions, meant your head might be severed from the rest of your body. Yeah. The king replied to the astrologers, so here now the king comes back. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. Now, is that enough motivation for them, do you think? Verse 5. Now, that's the bad news. But there's also good news. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive gifts and rewards from me. Not to mention the fact that you're not going to die. So tell me, verse 6. Again, they had no answers. Why didn't they have any answers? For their gods were false gods and could not tell them anything. Even if they believed in the gods, and even if the astrologers would look up at the stars and try to look for answers, they weren't going to find an answer. The king was we would say, I'm on to your game. The king was wise to their game, and he told them so. And this is what he says. Verse 8. I am certain you are trying to gain time. We would say, you're stalling for time. Because you realize that my threat is very real. They were playing a game of bluff with the king, who was not just a king, he was the head over a vast empire. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things. This is the king speaking to his astrologer, hoping the situation would change. I think they were most likely hoping that the king would grow weary of this and would say, okay, I'll tell you I'll give you a little hint as to what my dream was. But he wasn't going to do that. The king knew the game they were playing, and he wanted the truth. He wanted the truth, and he was about to learn about another wise man that he had in his kingdom. God was the only one, God, who could reveal the dream and then also tell its meaning. And I think mainly because the vision came from God, so easy for him to tell. But the king's advisors knew nothing of a one living and true God. The true God of the universe, they knew nothing about this king. Well, this God, rather. I think their attitude was, you have a very poor God because you only have one. We've got many. So our many gods trump your one God. So how could he know all that you need to know? So in verse 10, the astrologers answered the king. They're getting a little bolder now, I think. I don't know how bold I'd be with this guy. There is not a man on earth who can do what you ask. I don't know why. In other words, I don't know why you're asking. Because there's no one on this earth that you could ask and you'd get your answer. And not only that, but now they go so far as to say, and no king has ever asked such a thing from his advisors. Not only is there nobody that can answer it, but no man can reveal it to the king except the gods, little g gods, and they do not live among men, meaning they're not accessible. They're off in the clouds somewhere. It's not like we can ask them. Verse 11. They were being pretty gutsy about talking to this all-powerful king. And so what was the reaction of Nebuchadnezzar? Oh, I guess you guys were right. I shouldn't have done this. No. This made the king furious. For they had been warned what was going to happen if they didn't come through. So the king calls their bluff. He ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. Verse 12. And this included Daniel and his 3 friends. Now, mind you, the only person that knows about all of this are these wise men and the king's advisors and so forth, and the king and his servant. At first glance, it would seem that the story is about interpreting the king's dream. But God is good at multitasking. So let's think about what's also maybe going on. Will the king witness God's power and be convinced that he is the one and only God? Okay, so that's one avenue that God may be trying to work on the king. Will the astrologers and magicians see what knowledge has been given to Daniel and also believe? All of these things could be possibilities that God is trying to do. God is in the saving business, not just the miracle business. Do you remember when Jesus went before the local kings, and they said, "Oh, show us a miracle. Show us a miracle." It's kind of like, and he's going, "I'm not going to show you any miracle, except I'll tell you about the flood. I'll tell you about Noah. I'll tell you about what happened after the floodwaters came." Not Noah, probably Jonah. Because Jonah was 3 days in the belly of the great fish. Okay? Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days before he was brought back to life. And they don't understand that anyway. What they want to see is signs and wonders. That's what they wanted to see. And if he was alive today, that's what everybody would be saying. "Hey, come on, where are you going?" "Oh, we're all going down this prophet. He's going to do miracles. We've seen him, and we've heard about him before. We've seen him on CNN and whatever, so we're going to go down and see him." Daniel's faith is also being tested. Will he continue to place God first in his life? He's been doing pretty good so far. If he does, if he remains faithful, then God will be able to continue to use him. When it looks like he might lose his head, will he cave in? But if he remains faithful, then he will be used by God for his purposes, and he will be protected from harm. you got to admit, Daniel's a great role model. A really great role model. He's away from his, and they're fairly young, but he's away from the influence of his family members. He's been carted off and taken to a strange land. Interestingly enough, I don't remember whether it's in this verse or not. It's mentioned that they spoke Aramaic, and I thought, isn't that interesting that they would bring up that? Because Aramaic was the language that the common people spoke in the days of Jesus. And the only people that were speaking Hebrew were the religious leaders. In terms of, probably on their own, they were still speaking Aramaic. But Aramaic was a language that, because Babylon was such a multicultural place, it had so many people from all over the world that had been, when Nebuchadnezzar would conquer a place, he would bring those people to Babylon. And so here they're coming in and they're speaking God knows what language, and then he's got other people and they're speaking. So the common language that they used was Aramaic, and I found that to be kind of interesting. So you might say it's kind of like the language for business in the world is English. Even though people in Spain speak Spanish and people in France speak frog language, whatever that is, but when it comes to business transactions,
oh boy,
they speak English, and they have to if they want to succeed. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, Aramaic was evidently the kind of the neutral language that everybody could speak, and I wish I knew more about it to be able to know more why they chose that language. But
I was just reading about that. The Chaldean was the origin of Aramaic language, and the Chaldeans were the ones that were running everything. Babylon came out of the Chaldean culture. And in fact, the astrologers and everything were called Chaldeans.
yeah.
But
And that usually later on became California, I guess.
That explains the problem.
That might be.
and the problem continues.
Maybe they need to speak. Maybe they need to change their language. Maybe that will help. So, part of this whole, we were talking about what was God trying to do with the story, with the dream with Nebuchadnezzar, and we're gonna see. Although this seems to be drug out, this doesn't just cut to the chase. Okay, here's the dream. Here's the interpretation of the dream. Let's move on. No, there's lots and lots of other things that need to be said. But I think that it's. If he's going to be a role model for us in our life, then it would be trust in God, seek him for the knowledge that we need for how to live our lives. And then when we do that and we're faithful to him, then God will use us for his purposes. It doesn't work the other way around, where we say, oh Lord, please bless my project, bless my ministry. Really, what you're really saying is, Lord, what is it that you want me to do?
That's what Paul said.
Yeah. What do you want me to do? And that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm guaranteed you're going to bless it. I don't even have to ask you for that. But somehow, when you say bless my ministry, then you have a problem. You have an I problem. I'm the one in charge. I'm the one that's. So we need to remain in that humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and He'll lift you up. Being humble is not a bad thing. Being humble is a very, very good thing. So anyway, we have to move along here because we have a birthday cake and all that other kind of good stuff. So,
Ooh, who's
yeah.
birthday?
And Matthews.
Aha.
Uh-huh.